So this is my research seminar experience. This is a little about me and why I chose my topics. So my name is Jake Allen. I'm an exercise sports science major here at Methodist. I have a passion for exercise and sports, which has inspired me to pursue a career in both. My plan is to become a strength and conditioning coach for a football program after I graduate. With that being said, my aim was to research topics that related to the field of strength and conditioning. I think I did that. By finding areas of research relative to my field, I felt as if I could further strengthen my knowledge, which would thus make me a better overall coach. Alright, going into my initial thoughts. So when I first started to think about what I should research, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to look into. However, I did know that I wanted to research something related to strength and conditioning, as I just mentioned. So to begin with, I generally wanted to learn more about squatting every day and its effects on the human body. I quickly learned that this was not a very good idea and that I should research into something more practical and realistic because I wasn't going to find search results on this, most likely. I then shifted my focus into researching the effectiveness that performing jump squats could have on improving vertical jump height. Learned that this was too specific as well and in my search results, and I wasn't finding any information. So I widened my search to what exercises improve vertical jump height, and I found much more information. So my initial thoughts of research won't take very long shifted to research is hard and it takes a while. Going into my first literature review, this literature review took me the longest, mainly because I was getting a feel for how to research effectively and how to review my research. My topic of research was what exercises improve vertical jump height. I found a significant amount of information and I learned a lot about what types of exercises could be used to improve the vertical jump. After reviewing my findings, I decided it would be interesting to look further into the squatting movement for literature review number 2. So going into that, my second literature review. My research question was, what squat depths consist of the most muscle activation in the legs? This was fun to learn more about because I've heard many different depths about what is the optimal, or many different things about what's the optimal depth for the squat, for squatting. So I improved a lot at researching my topic, and I got a lot better at reviewing my research on this literature review. By the end of the review, I decided that I had learned a decent amount about exercises. So for the next review, I decided to look at the effects of different exercise frequencies, which leads me into my third literature review. My research question was, what is the optimal amount of days per week to exercise in order to see the best fitness improvements? This was more of a boring topic in my opinion than the past two, but the information I found was still very useful. In all, I did a much better job of connecting my findings to comparisons and contrast in this review, and the research and review process felt much smoother than it did when I first started. Alright, going into some of my interesting findings, we'll start with literature review number 1. Zeiss 2013 and Honeycutt Elder Dawes and Sinclair Elder 2016 found that by performing plyometric exercises, subjects seeing improvements in vertical jump height. Also, Marion et al. 2016 and Tiramala and Modimath 2014 found that by performing resistance exercises, subjects improved in vertical jump height as well. So that shows that potentially plyometric exercises and resistance exercises could be used to potentially improve vertical jump height. So Dalen, Weld, Talar, and all in 2013 found that utilizing muscle coordination when performing the ballistic squat jump could lead to significantly higher improvements in vertical jump height. And now when I say muscle coordination, they took their subjects and they divided them into group 1 and group 2. Group 1 performed the ballistic squat jump utilizing triple extension. So they had plantar flexion in the ankle joint when they jumped. Group 2 did not. They kept their ankle and dorsiflexion and didn't use that muscle coordination in the triple extension. So group 2, which was the one that did not use plantar flexion, trained plantar flexion in a different fashion. So I thought that was cool to see that muscle coordination in certain exercises could lead to improvements in vertical jump height. So I thought that was cool. All right, going into literature review number 2, Hammond et al. 2016 found that the parallel squat can cause more muscle activation in the vastus lateralis than the partial squat did. The parallel squat also had more muscle activation in the gluteus maximus than the full squat did. Sahasrabudda et al. 2017 found that the parallel squat showed the highest mean electromyographic activity in the vastus lateralis and gluteus maximus. Marchetti et al. 2016 found that parallel squats showed higher levels of muscle activation in the quadriceps and gluteus maximus when compared with the partial and full squats. Gorsuch et al. 2013 also found that there was a higher amount of muscle activity in the rectus femoris when performing the parallel squat versus the partial squat. So 4 out of these 4 studies, 4 out of 5 studies found that performing squats to a depth of parallel you could have more muscle activation in the vastus lateralis and gluteus maximus than a partial depth or a full squat depth. All right. However, contrasting these 4 studies, Contreras et al. 2015 found no significant differences in muscle activation between the parallel squat and full squat. So there would be more research that would need to be done to solidify these findings. Going into literature review number 3, some more of the most interesting findings that I found. Pieselgrave et al. 2019 found no significant differences between exercise frequency once a week and twice a week. Similar, Thomas and Burns 2016 and Lee et al. 2017 found no significant differences between exercising once a week and 3 times a week. Barcelos et al. 2018 found that when comparing exercise at 5, 3, and 2 times per week, there were no significant differences found. So that shows you 4 out of 5 studies found no significant differences between exercising between once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, or 5 times a week. So these findings say that exercising once a week could be considered more optimal because you're doing less and getting the same results. Right. On the other hand, Fernandi et al. 2013 found that in adults over the age of 60, exercising 3 times a week significantly improved functional fitness in chair, sit, and stand, and walk 2 meters. When compared with exercising once a week and twice a week. So different findings, however, these subjects were over the age of 60 when these 4 that found no significant differences between exercise frequency, they were adults under the age of 60, around the age of 20 to 30. So just something to consider when looking at this. All right, going into what I learned, the process. It takes a lot longer to find research studies than I originally thought. Very true. Wording is important when trying to find your studies. So what I mean by this is one word added, one word subtracted could completely change the results in getting more or less, or getting something you don't want, something you do want. So creating an outline is a must when trying to find the correct order that a study should be in. I usually don't create outlines for anything, usually just wing it, figure it out as I go. But for this, I would say you definitely need an outline to kind of structure however you want everything and get it to where it flows kind of properly and makes a little sense. I also learned that seeing P is less than 5/100 in a study means that that the findings were significant. So whenever you see that, kind of open your eyes, start looking around, because there's something there they want you to know that they found was significant. So something to look for in studies in the future for me. A literature review needs to compare and contrast findings, or else it is basically just an annotated bibliography. That I learned that out a little later on in literature review number 2 and literature review number 3, but I definitely learned that, and I definitely apply that whenever I'm doing literature reviews in the future. What I learned, this is more like information, findings, stuff like that. Squatting to a parallel depth could lead to greater muscle activation in the vastus lateralis and gluteus maximus than the partial or full squat depth. Also, I learned using muscle coordination when performing exercises could lead to more improvements in vertical jump height than not using muscle coordination. That was probably the coolest thing I found, in my opinion. I want to look more into that too. In adults under the age of 60, exercising once a week could be more optimal for fitness improvements than exercising 2, 3, or 5 times a week. Pretty cool. Do less, get the same results. In adults over the age of 60, exercising 3 times a week could be more optimal for fitness improvements, exercising once or twice. Also pretty cool. Need to find more research on that though. Alright, just some closing remarks that I have. Overall, I learned a great deal throughout this whole research process. I expanded my knowledge on 3 areas that I wanted to look into. I believe as a result, this has made me a better overall strength and conditioning coach for the future. From here, I will continue to use my learned skills to stay up to date on research. Also, I'll be able to effectively look up and evaluate research studies in the future, which will help me answer any questions they may have on certain topics I'm not sure on. And these are just the references that I have, and that's my research experience.